Salvation and the Most High just put His name on it, so we represent. All praise. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone. Welcome to another segment of YAH Conscience Radio. Well, if it's not YAH Conscience, it is not acceptable. Reshit, Naknu, Rotim, Latit Kabod, Weshabak, Le Yahweh El Elyon, Elohe Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. First, we want to give honor and praise to He or it that causes us to be or exist, the most high power of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Shalom, everyone. What's going on to the panel?
Hallelujah.
How y'all doing? Y'all good? You muted right now.
Okay.
Sharon, if you're speaking, you muted.
Look, I'm sitting here talking. But no, all is well. It could all be worse. Try not to complain about, just try to keep positive.
I hear that. Trust me, I know I am exhausted right now, but we gonna get it moving. The show must go on. What is that I see behind Chief Zell? I mean, what's that right there? What's the blue and white stripes back there, man? What you got? got a banner back there, a flag. Can you explain to the people what that might be?
Was that shameless plugging on the platform there?
Hey man, this is our platform. We can do what we want. We're going to go ahead and get it started with how you bring it out later. But we got another good topic today, or a good title today. Interesting topics brought out by none other than YAH Sharon, and I think it's some beautiful questions that we're going to go over that's really needed in our community, whether it's in the so-called Black community alone and or our community. I think it's all above, so-called Black people in general. So let's go ahead and look at the topic. The topic of the day is safeguarding your household and community. Safeguarding your household and community. Before we go with the first topic, what's you all's when you heard that topic, when you saw that title, I should say, what's the first thing that came to you all's mind? Safeguarding your household and community. Anybody can just go ahead.
Just taking steps on keeping your household in order. It's pretty self-explanatory, actually. Just just keeping your household safe. Just having your household affairs in order. From many variables that can diminish or interrupt the flow of your household and the righteousness of your household as well.
All right. Anybody else?
No, that's pretty much it. She had kind of nailed that. Anything else after that would be redundancy.
Okay. I do think that these topics do cover everything in regards to safeguarding your household and community. It is one I'm gonna throw in there a little monkey wrench at the end to kind of like fully bring out a full spectrum. I think that could be added to this safeguarding when it comes to the household and community. But without further ado, let's go ahead and go to the first topic. And the first topic is, how can we find balance between can two walk unless agreed and the Most High hates divorce? How can we find balance with that? Between can two walk unless agreed and the Most High hates divorce? That's a good one. Let's go ahead. We'll start with you, Chief. And you're muted.
Okay, exactly. So the question: how can we find balance between the concept of can two walk unless agreed, or can two walk unless agreed, and the Most High hates divorce? touchy. I think both of those concepts are probably like two of the most grossly misunderstood concepts in scripture. One of them is always taken out of context, and the other is kind of a half truth. So let's start at the first one. Can two walk together unless agreed? And I'm just going to take it from the context of how it is used popularly. Without getting into the attested language and whatever. But just from how people take it as far as in a relationship, in a household, where do we find the middle ground of walking together in unison, a same mind, same body, same consciousness, or whatever, and the idea of the Most High hating divorce. What does it mean for two people to walk together? Does that mean that every single element of the relationship is going to be in absolute agreement? I mean, is that what we're saying? Or are we saying, can two walk together being in agreement? Are we referring to that? Should I say, are we referring to it being something where people can agree on the top tier concepts of a relationship, the most important elements? And then, of course, once we begin to question that, then we ask, well, then what are these concepts? What portions of these concepts play a role in divorce? What elements of disagreement in a relationship is grounds for divorce? Does the Most High, in fact, hate divorce? I think that the Most High would not prefer divorce, but the law was given, obviously, obviously for very good reasons, because I believe, and I'm going to speak very carefully here, because I don't like to pretend to know all the thoughts or even a portion of the thoughts of the Most High. But based on the text that we were given, we were given divorce for the purpose of what? Severing a covenant that could absolutely not be saved. That cannot be saved. Of course, the Most High wouldn't prefer, but it is a necessary exit clause. It's a necessary escape clause. And I know I kind of went to divorce first, because I think once we understand why the term divorce has been so kind of ran into the ground in a bad way, once we understand that, and we understand that divorce is not a bad thing, then we can actually have a conversation about what does it mean for people to walk together in agreement. Historically, and I think we've had this conversation before, Maury Shema. Historically, there were two schools of thought that dealt with divorce in our community among the so-called Pharisees. We had one side of the fence, the school of Hillel, that believed that that marriage was a sacred institution and you had to do everything in your power to preserve it at all costs. The other side of the fence, the school of Shammai, believe the exact opposite. Their thing was, you don't have to, you don't have to endure anything. If anything in the relationship is problematic for you, you can write a bill of divorce and can wrap it up like that. I think wisdom is found somewhere in between those two. We do whatever we can to preserve the institution of marriage, but not to the point where you find yourself walking contrary to the Most High in order to preserve that relationship. And so with with walking, with two walking together unless they're agreed. I think at some point the two parties have to figure out what issues can be compromised on, what issues cannot be compromised on. Because we can have an agreement on all of the foundational concepts, the foundational principles. Do we both believe in YAH? Yes, cool. Do we both believe that we should be keeping the laws of the Torah to the best of our ability in this land? Yes, cool. And so on and so forth. Now, if we disagree on something as something like well, you're a vegan and and I eat meat, or you're a vegetarian and I eat fish, whatever. Stuff like that is not, I don't think those are grounds for divorce. That's more of an issue of like, okay, we can compromise. You eat what you eat and I eat what I eat, because neither one of, as long as everything is under the auspices of the Torah, as long as the Torah allows for it, then we should be fine. And so those type of concepts, what type of ideas can be compromised on. But then there's some things that just absolutely cannot be compromised. I believe in the Most High, and let's say the woman or whoever the case, they says, well, I believe that the Most High is 3 and 1. Yeah, that might not work. You know what I'm saying? Those are things. So I think that being able to walk together, it can be done, but I think it has to do with the two individuals and what do they find as absolutely necessary to agree on. And can they agree on those essential components? If they can't, then divorce is imminent. If they can, then hallelujah.
Yeah.
And that's I'm gonna step back at this point. I was kind of about to go into some other stuff, but I'd have just been running my mouth.
All right. YAH Sharon, what you got? What you got for us? You're muted. There you go.
Adia. I had always found it interesting that we use the scripture and allot it to relationships, marriages. Where when you read Amos 3:3, well, when you read the whole chapter,
Yep.
it kind of it's basically explaining an opposition of something, for an example, verse 6, it say, shall a trumpet be blown in a city and the people not be afraid? Shall there be evil in a city and the Most High have not done it? So when I read the full context of this scripture, it would insinuate that can two walk together except they be agreed? It's a question mark behind that. It would insinuate that no, it's not possible upon reading the full context clues of the scripture. So I go to say, is it a flawed mentality when people say opposites attract? Is that all? Is that an illusion when people say opposites attract? And I wanted to allot this verse strictly for Sleeker. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Loud and clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when I say can two walk unless they be agreed, what do that really mean? Like Chief was saying, it's very vague. But since this verse is always microscope to marriages, I wanted to pinpoint, okay, how can two walk unless they be agreed? And then it reads the Most High hate divorce. So when I break that down, I look at it like, okay, I can buy my son his first car, a brand new car. Yeah, you wouldn't want him to crash his car. You wouldn't want him to have any damages on it or things like that. But hey, stuff happens, life happens. So you got to ask yourself, all right, the Most High hate divorce, but on the same token, why are these instructions in place in case a situation does come to play where someone has to, when a relationship has to end? So let's find that balance. It goes back to what Kathy was saying our last broadcast, when we was talking about leadership, when we was talking about where are the leaders, because that would be an example. Sleeker, my camera is going out. Can y'all hear me?
No, we hear everything you said.
I'm so sorry.
We hear everything that you said.
So I guess it rolls in perfectly to the next topic at hand, and that's why I had wanted to pinpoint this particular topic, because it kind of flows into what the next topic is allotted to.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and take it. I'm gonna go ahead and come in. I have I love the thoughts that was brought out. I think that what was brought out was definitely good and actually fits the bill as well. I look at this verse a little differently, and I also want to read the two verses underneath it as well, like Kabet Sharon did,Ako Sharon did, and I want to show something. So Amos 3:3, I'm gonna read it as like the first verse. I'm gonna read it as like the KJV kind of reads it. Can two walk together unless they agree, right? Or less agreed. Next verse. Does a lion roar in the forest when he has no prey? Does a great beast let out a cry from its den without having made a capture? I want to stop there. When you're reading this, right, just these particular verses, it's like saying it's these examples that was brought forth. It's not going to do these things unless something else happens alongside with it, right? The English version says agreed. But what I pulled out of it is actually meet. Can two walk together unless they meet? It's impossible. You can't walk together if you don't meet. So let's put meet in there instead of agreed, and then let's read the other two verses after. And then you're going to see a pattern. You should see a pattern, right? Can two walk together unless they meet or without having met? Does a lion roar in the forest when he has no prey? If that prey is there, he's going to roar. Does a great beast let out a cry from his den without having made a capture? Those two not going to happen. So let's take it out of marriage. Let's move to marriage. Y'all brought up leaders. We have people that are New Testament, and we have people that are Tanakh only. We're trying to make a difference in Israel, and they won't even come to meet. You can't walk together unless you come and just meet. That does not mean you're going to agree, but the walking together part is we're trying to make a difference. If we don't meet, we can't make a difference. Meaning we can't even walk together. So it's steps behind it. Steps has to be put in place in order for it to happen. So in this scripture in particular, I would translate it, Hebraically speaking, as met or meet. Going into the next one, the Most High hates divorce. Y'all tackle that already. For me, I really don't have anything extra to add in there. The ultimate goal is not to. I'm with Chief when he said it should be somewhere in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Like just doing everything possible that you can do. If it's taken away from what you're supposed to do with the Most High and taking away how you should move, you might want to get some count. Well, we're going to get into all that. Like you had said, I hope. I'm not going to go into the next topics, but I just wanted to really pinpoint the walking together part. I think if we look at that with the language one, and I know Chief said he didn't want to go that route, so I just brought out a little piece though, Chief. You know what I'm saying? It would change a dynamic, especially for New Testament and Tanakh only. Like we won't even, not we, but they won't even come together because of the beliefs. I'm taking this away from just husband wife, because husband wife that should just be known. Like Chief I said, what's the pinnacle, the things that matter the most. We're coming together on those things. We're not going to agree on everything. We wouldn't have been married if we wouldn't have even met. So I'm gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna keep ranting. Hopefully something I said made some sense to those that's listening. I'm pass the mic to get better, Kathy.
Thank you, Toda. So I actually put my thoughts and my feelings in perspective. I itemized them from my perspective. I believe that there should be a foundation. And when I say by foundation, your level of understanding with the Most High. You know, again, whether it's with the New Testament or the Torah, you have to have a foundation. That's to me, that's the number one thing. Secondly, how do we keep, you know, the respect, you know, far as individually, you know, you fell in love with a person or you became attracted to that person because of their individual characteristics. You can't marry someone and take away who they are or try to smother who you fell in love with. So you're going to have to continue to nurture their creativity. You know, just who they are, because we are going to continue to grow as individuals, but we should never, ever separate from the foundation. And again, that's that understanding that you and your wife are supposed to have with the Most High. That also includes space. I mean, people, men, and sometimes even women look at when you say that word space, like that's wrong, like there's something wrong with that. You know, as I said, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, you know, we're going to have our relationship with the Most High together, but I also have my individual relationship with the Most High. There may be a time that I just want to commune with him alone or just have my own thoughts, my own time. So I think those are key foundations that also make marriages respectful and lasting. Thirdly, for me, if there's any issues that come about in that reference to divorce, I feel that with our understanding, our level of divorce should be a little bit more or less in the percentile rate than the average person. And the reason why is because I believe that the Torah provides us the statutes, laws, and the commandments that we are supposed to abide by, again, individually, collectively, you know, as a community. If whether it's a male or female are they're not abiding by those things, or things are coming up that is causing issues, we should be able to reference that, not reference Ebony Magazine, not reference Essence Magazine, or whoever said what on Facebook. And again, back to that elder, there has to be someone there that can tell either one of you, regardless of how long you've known each other. If you was my teacher or whatever, your boo-boo do stink. I'm sorry. We have to stop being afraid of letting people know they're wrong. Because if you don't say something, people continue to believe that they are wrong. So let's talk about meat. I agree with that. You're going to have to meet at some point in time. But what's funny, we can't even meet as a people. Sometimes we can't meet together as a couple. But you have people men and women, once they get of age of 18 years old, they can join all levels of the military branch. And whenever that button is pushed for all branches to commune together, these people that have come together from all different walks and belief are going to fight a war that they may or may not believe, but they don't have the opportunity to pull out. They have to go forward. If they decide to do it, they go AWOL, they have consequences and repercussions. So again, why don't we have, we should have consequences and repercussions. We should have someone that's able to guide us when we get in these certain situations in marriages. That's my comment.
I like how you brought that out too
Yeah.
about military. I think that's amazing. And what's crazy is the military actually, I believe a lot of things pertaining to the United States, they took a lot from the ancient Eastern literature or the Torah in regards to these things. The problem that I think that we're facing, especially based off some of the things you all said, is we don't have a universal. We do have a universal standard within our literature, but we don't have a universal standard within how we operate. So not having a universal standard within how we operate is totally opposite when it comes to the military. Like you said, like they have differences. Oh my goodness, I done heard a few of them, but they have a universal standard that brings them together, and they actually have meetings amongst each other with the different branches. Hence, New Testament to the.
I mean, to that point, to what Guerrero Kathy just said and to what you were saying. I mean, think about, and I always use, almost ad nauseum. I use the Khazars as an example. The so-called, the J people, the Jewish people. There's a in their communities, you have these two extremes. You got the ultra orthodox Hasidic or Hasidim group, and especially if you're from the Northeast, if you're from like New York, Jersey, whatever. I'm not too sure about like in Baltimore or whatever like that, but I know Guerrero Sharon. I know she knows about these people, the Hasidic movement. They are, like, when I say ultra in their beliefs, like they're out there. Then you got the other extreme, a group of so-called Jews called the Reformist movement. These are Jews who believe that the Torah allows them to eat pork.
Yeah.
As long as you slaughter it correctly, you can kosherize pork. Like there's an actual, and they're called the Reform movement. And then you got all of these in between shades of those two extremes, and they differ radically on these issues. I mean, they're just so different in this issue and that issue, whatever like that. But what happens when somebody outside of their community rises up and says something against Jews? What happens to those differences?
Yep.
They dissipate immediately. Mm-hmm. Immediately. Now it's no longer, well, I'm a reformist and I'm a Hasidic and I'm an Orthodox and I'm a this. They're like, oh no, they call it Am Olam in Hebrew. They say, no, we're not. We are the eternal people. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, all of the labels and all of the differences and all of that goes right out the door immediately. They go handle what they got to handle. And then eventually they'll get back to what they personally believe about, but they understand how and when to put certain things aside and say, okay, these things are not as important as us coming together and moving against those who are trying to destroy us, or the illusion that somebody's trying to destroy them. We haven't gotten to, well, let me not say we haven't gotten to that point.
On a large scale, anyway.
Right. I mean, it's, you find unity in pockets. Mm-hmm. Like when I have conversations with people about the idea, matter of fact, the brother, well, the brother of Lord Shema, the brother that we have conversations with a lot over the same issues about unity in Israel. And I've said it on many occasions that people who say that there's absolutely no unity in Israel, I would say no, that's actually not even, that's not correct. They do have unity. Proof is, go into one of their camps. Everybody is unified in their group. So it's not like unity can't be accomplished. You know what I'm saying? The question is how do we extend these concepts of unity and these concepts of being able to walk together? How do we extend it to encompass the other groups, the other tribes, or the other congregations, or the other camps, whatever like that. So it's not that it can't be done. We just haven't figured out how to do it on a much larger scale. At least from my vantage point.
I agree. Anybody else got something to add to that?
The individuals and the institutions also need to be willing to elevate themselves as well, come together and try to learn. Again, whether it's in an individual relationship, or whether it's a community wise, it's something that has to be. You have to want it.
That desire.
You have to have that desire. So it's very hard. It's very hard when you have a passion, again, even as a community, to want to be better, and you have people walking to a totally different beat. At what point do you say when? When do you say I have to oar my boat this direction? Because this is not going to be beneficial for my community. This is not going to be beneficial for me. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like we're talking tonight, hypothetically, yes, what we can and what needs to be done. But like people individually, again, community-wise, struggle with this every day, because either they were brought up in it, they fear, like, can I go outside of this if they're not doing right? Can I join another congregation? So I think this is a part two. That's all I wanted to add on it to that.
What you got, our Coach Sharon? Look like you're ready to say something. You good?
No, I'm just I'm just listening to everyone's perspective, because this is something that I actually want to gain understanding, for myself as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I agree. I resonate with everything.
Oh yeah. All right, those that are listening right now, those that's tuning in, please, if you have not paused right now, go on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. It's going to be a lot of conversations going forward. We got a few more topics today. We appreciate you all's support. So subscribe, like, and share. The community needs these topics. The people need these topics. So we're going to go ahead and play the first song of this evening. And it's by a group called U3. They are two sisters, one brother. They got some beautiful music, man. So this first song is called Broken Souls. Here we go.
Please heal us. broken souls. We need your guidance. You're our stronghold. Abba, please heal us. Our broken souls. We need your guidance. You're our stronghold. Broken people every day. Abba, Yahuwah, bring your healing hands this way. Our minds are crippled and hearts are torn. We are your patience with your power. Please perform a mending, a repairing, a transforming, to complete. Yashara, we're crying out. Please heal us. Please, 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 please. Our broken soul. Our broken soul. We need your guidance. We need your guidance. You're our stronghold. Our stronghold. Abba, please heal us. Our broken souls. We need your guidance. You're our stronghold.
All right. That was U3. Like I said, it's a family group. 2 sisters, 1 brother. The brother is also an engineer, I believe a producer as well. They're also in the way,
Nice.
in the truth. The song was actually like 5 minutes. I had to stop it though, it was getting to that 4-minute mark. It was close. It was about almost 6 minutes long. But it's nice, smooth, definitely like some meditation type music too, if you're just chilling. Welcome back to another segment of YAH Conscience Radio. If it's not YAH Conscience, it is not acceptable. Please make sure you have subscribed if you haven't. Like, comment, let us know your thoughts. We're going to go ahead and go into the next topic. And the next topic is concerning outside influence. When it comes to your marriage, when should you keep it private and when should you make it public? Concerning outside influence, when it comes to your marriage, when should you keep it private and when should you make it public? Get better, Kathy, what you got for us? Happy to throw you in there. Yeah.
Let me go back to my notes here. Again, as men and women individually, we have our own personal issues and inquiries when we go through relationship issues. I believe there are certain levels of your relationship that you can speak about with someone in your community, Israelite community. And then you're definitely sure of them because, again, you can have people come in every Sabbath or whatever the case may be, but their values may be totally different from yours. So I definitely would, seek counsel that way on a level, again, whether it's, the ladies chopping it up or whether it's the guys. If it's something, again, as far as just an issue that you still can't get that sort of counsel from, again, that's when the leader comes in, to help counsel. Yes, there is times when things should be made public. Number one, when there's physical, sexual, molestation going on, any sort of abuse in the home. You know, that definitely should be escalated. And my husband gave me something last night that I thought was very interesting, and it was a group of congregations that pretty much had wrote up a creed that they had deemed on that date that they these different congregations signed off on it, that they were no longer going to accept those things that I listed out to you, that, you know, they were going to summons the accused, they were going to have a trial, whatever. If the person decides they don't want to be questioned, then they're not allowed back until they can proceed with that proper, again, that hearing. I think that there should just be standard across the board, because there are a lot of people that come into the understanding, that have been in the understanding, and because they have the knowledge, I really think that some people, men and women, think that certain rules don't apply.
Okay.
And it does. A woman is your helpmate. They're not your basketball or that punching bag. They're not, and vice versa, because things like that do go on, where women can be the abuser. So that's my take on that.
Okay. Very insightful. Love it. Love it. Sharon, what you got? What you got for us?
Yeah, so this topic personally speaks a lot of values to me, because I was once one of those who were very free-forming when it came to my relationship, to my marriage. I was one of those who had a hard time establishing boundaries, not understanding how to be socially selective, intellectually selective as well, when it comes to venting, or when it comes to speaking on any type of personal things in your marriage, any type of marital issues in your marriage with someone else, mainly preferably your girls. Sometimes your IKs, if you want to confide in in your IK about something. You definitely want to be careful, because a lot of people, in reality, a lot of people don't like positive relationships. A lot of people don't like righteous relationships. We have a lot of things going on now where side chicks is being normalized, sneaky links is being normalized. It's just a lot of counteracting of marriage that is going on now, which can also be become a detriment to your relationship, to your marriage. I remember I said something about in-laws as well. That can be
Did you?
yeah, so
I don't know if I saw that.
let me
I don't know if I saw that one.
So now, Slika, my camera,
maybe you did.
my
Maybe you
volume
did.
keeps going out. I can't hear you guys on my end.
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah, your original one was
Okay,
like,
hear you.
I just shortened it because it was like 4 questions in one. No, I'm looking at the wrong
Hey,
one. Where is it?
Also, you got to be mindful that when you vent, or when you say certain things to outsiders, you're also putting out a certain energy to them that gives the impression that this is how your current relationship status is. But normally, no, it's not how it is. You're just speaking out of being mad at the time, or you're speaking out of being irrational, not logical at the moment. So we go out to we go out to an ear, any ear that is willing to listen. So you have to, having that understanding that those people don't have that understanding of what's going on, what's really going on. So they carry on this impression of you, of your spouse, So that's Yeah, it's yeah.
Well, I love what you brought out, um, especially one of the parts that I got out of what you were saying, or I wanted to extract. I'm not sure if that exactly was what you were saying, but some people just they want to be heard. So when I hear that part, it makes me well, first let me make sure I stay on topic first. Let me make sure I stay on topic. Concerning outside influence, when it comes to your marriage, when should you keep it private and when should you make it public? A lot of times people make it public because they don't feel that they could communicate with one another. So I know this is off topic in a sense, but um, you know, if you have established that communication with one another, allowing each other to both be heard, then I believe that with that standard, that would probably set a tone as to, okay, look, we're going to keep a lot of pressing matters private. Make sure we can go the distance in these particular subjects first, and then from there you have those individuals that are rooting for you, that wants you to succeed, that are not yes men and or yes women, and also establishing a foundation as to not just going to any individual, like you had said in the first one you wrote out, that I kind of just summed up. You brought in the in-laws, you brought in the let me see, you brought in the in-laws, family, and friends. Um, a lot of your in-laws, your family, and your friends are not in this culture that you're in, unless everyone was raised in it in your family. But we tend to go to those that aren't doing what we're doing, because those that are doing what we're doing kind of knows what that standard is, or should. So establishing that foundation with one another, setting that tone as to going to someone that's for you, but also is not going to be a yes man or a yes woman. Um, that needs to be set. So when it comes to your marriage, when should you keep it private? I think that you should keep it private most of the time, until you all just hit a wall. When you hit that wall, you should have something in place to, okay, we hit this wall right here, we have to go to so and so, Chief Prince Zebulon. He's going to X, Y, and Z, or Geberet so and so. And maybe we can part ways after we have this. Maybe we can do to where you go to her, I go to him, and then we bring them together. You know what I'm saying? They have like a sit down. Just some examples. Public, I agree with the better Kathy or what she brought out. I think that is probably because public, for me, I don't think we need to go public, unless it's something like what Gebet Kathy is saying. On some, child molestation, on some, you know, beating and all of those things. That's just my take. But for me, I'm one of those individuals that want to make sure everything is kept in house if we could, as long as we're operating in righteousness. As long as we're operating in righteousness. So that's my take on that. Chief Zebulon, what you got?
Okay, and my position is pretty much going to land back off of everything that's been said already. When we talk about privacy, should issues in marriage, should they be private or whatever, I think they should, but I say that with a major caveat attached to it. And the reason why, and I say we have to be very careful with privacy. Privacy is good, but we got to be very careful with privacy, because we've seen when things are kept in house to a fault. So I'm not talking about in house is fine, but when it's not checked, what happens with privacy? Privacy it erodes accountability.
Okay.
If it's left unchecked, and a lot of times we do leave it unchecked. This is why we've seen the movies. We've seen the movies where domestic violence situations where I don't know if y'all remember the movie. I want to say was it the movie called Enough with Jennifer Lopez?
Jennifer Lopez. Yep.
Or am I thinking about? Because sometimes I confuse that with the Sleeping with the Enemy movie. It's kind of the same platform, but but if you think about these type of movies, one of the parts of these movies that's like rarely spoken about is why these things. Why did and we'll just take the Jennifer Lopez movie. Why did the situation get to the point where she would have to go train, go to another part of the country and start training and learning how to fight? Because these things were kept under wrap, because there was either a written or unwritten rule that, hey, what goes on in here stays in here. You don't go out and talk to the people at the job. You don't go and talk to the people at the post office. You don't go tell people whatever. And so what that does is that it creates an atmosphere where a person can bust your head without any fear of reprisal. Why? Because if it's kept inside, who else is going to know?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by, we have to be very careful with privacy because of that. You know what I'm saying? Because it has been shown to be very abusive if left in the wrong hands.
That's why I mentioned that one word I put in there.
Right.
Righteously.
No, Kane. No doubt.
That word wasn't in there, but but righteous
right.
is and true righteous, not righteous in your own eyes either, y'all.
Right. And that's absolutely. But that's the reason why I said that, if left that it can be dangerous if left in the wrong hands, because you have some people that if they're coming from a righteous platform, they can actually handle whatever the issues that they're having. They can handle it in private, and it can be rectified because she's coming to the table righteously. He's coming to the table righteously. They know what the situation is. They know what the Torah says. They know what the script says. They can move forward in it, and all should be well. And that, so I'm just saying that when it falls in the wrong hands, it's usually one person wanting to come to the table righteously, and the other person is coming to break their jaw. So, but the other thing that we got to keep in mind, like the flip side of privacy, is that a lot of these concepts and anecdotes that we're dealing with on this subject, they're coming out of necessity. The necessity of us being in captivity and or exile. So a lot of these concepts, we're doing these things because we're trying to make sense of, of the conditions that we're in here. But when we think about in ancient times, when we think about it from a biblical standpoint, privacy was something that kind of almost didn't really exist communally.
Right. Key word.
Right. In the Tanakh, even when you get to the New Testament times, it's still the same concept. That there was an understanding that community. We spoke, I think we spoke last week about when we were speaking about marriage, ceremonies and things of that nature. And was it the week prior? The week prior. We were speaking about marriage ceremonies. And remember, we spoke about how that part of the marriage process, aside from the whole intercourse thing, a major part of the marriage process is what? The whole community got to get in on this.
Yeah.
Like the whole community has to know what went down, so on and so forth, because it was people. We did not look at ourselves as strictly individuals trying to come together. We looked at ourselves as a collective who also have our personal lives, but we were a collective. Maurice Shamar, you did an entire teaching, I think, down in Goshen about the idea of the people coming together as one man.
Okay.
So we understood that it was a communal mentality. So when you have that mentality, it's very difficult for people to get away with the things that they could normally get away with today.
That's right.
Because if the woman was violated, you know what I'm saying? It's say in the field, if some dude ran up her, you know what I'm saying, in the field and violated her, the first thing the Torah tells her what? She has to cry out. She cannot keep that to herself. She can't be like, oh, I'm just not going to say anything. No, she's supposed to scream at the top of her lungs, please, someone come get this filthy whatever. And the community came together, judged the situation, and the community had a hand, a unified hand in dealing with the perpetrator.
Yeah.
So historically, we were communal. We did all things as a unit. Privacy was a luxury. It wasn't a given. It was more of a luxury because every element of life you spent with the community. You worshiped with the community. You ate communal meals. Everything was done as a unit, as a people. So if this sister over here is getting violated, the moment that it happens, the word has already been circulating through the community.
Yeah.
And vice versa. If this sister is wilding out and and abusing a brother or however the abuse goes down, these things would make its way throughout the community. So everybody knows, okay, yeah, she's a whatever, and he's and they would deal with it as a unit. The concept of privacy, again, it was a luxury. It wasn't a given. But today, because we don't come from a communal setting, we are individuals trying to figure out communal mentality. And so because of that, privacy is still going to be an important thing. We still, got to hold on to privacy a little bit, but all these things have to be, and that's why I agree with everybody on the panel that it has to be done in righteousness. Otherwise it's a disaster waiting to happen. It has happened, actually. So
yeah, most definitely. So again, for those that's tuning in or watching back on it, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to keep saying it. Subscribe, get it out there. You can also, reach out to us, YAH Conscience Radio at gmail.com with any questions or topics you might want us to speak on. It's a family affair, man. We're trying to get right. Everybody trying to get right. So, did anyone have anything else to say with this topic? Anything to add? Comments, thoughts? Go ahead.
I do. Two things that I do want to add. I think as we get older, we also realize that, again, people can give the impression that you can confide in them. And you learn, especially when they burn you. But I also learned that we as adults sometimes can levitate to the people who we want, when we want to hear certain responses and we want to feel a certain way. You have to be strong enough to know that that's not where you need to go. Because sometimes that could be just adding fuel to the fires. As my sister said earlier, some people just, strive on you just not being happy. So we really got to be careful with that. We really and truly do. I think Chief used an example months ago, like I'll say something, tell it to one person, let it get back to me. I already know how I'm going to deal with you at that point because I haven't told anyone else. But now I'm getting chatter. The second thing that I wanted to point out was that even if people call and they want to vent, I'm not saying that we, the people on this panel are not, physicians or whatever, but we need to start being in tune with a little bit more with mental illnesses as well. Because you have a lot of people that will reach out. It's not right.
Yeah.
It's I don't even know where to begin to say where the red flags, begin, but It's something that exists in our community. It's something that we need to recognize, and it's something that needs to be dealt with. So even if someone calls you and confides in you and they telling you the same story over and over and over again, I'm not saying run and tell everybody. But at that point, you know what I mean? Like maybe that second time, you're like, I need to take this to someone else. It just don't feel right. It just don't. It's not sitting right in my spirit. So those are the two things that I just wanted to, just put on the table before we left this particular question and moved on to the next.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right.
Excellent points. Excellent.
Okay.
Okay. What you said, Kathy? You kind of taught me to learn who you're working with, learn who you're dealing with, learn who you're telling these things to, and who you're telling it. Just learn your peers. And I thank you because you taught me a great deal behind that. And it kind of like changed a lot of my perspective, and it changed a lot of my behavior and action towards a lot of things that I once used to do when it came to my marriage.
Hallelujah. Beautiful.
Told our sister, I love you.
All right. This is YAH Conscience Radio. Well, if it's not YAH Conscience, it is not acceptable. We are going to go to the next song. Let's go to the next song, you all. And that next song is Survivor by U3. We're going to play that music tonight. Survivor by U3. Here we go.
I'm a survivor, baby. I'm a survivor, baby. Telling my somebody that I know I'm gonna make it. I'm a survivor, baby. You can call me crazy, but I'm living and I'm showing.
They tried to bury me in the dirt, but with these hands I put in work. They tried to leave me in the past, but in the streets we built to last. Call it an out-of-body experience, looking at his tally. Evil dropping by you, who was named Allah Almighty. You can see that Yasha is vain, but we just know our daddy. Demons getting sliced up by Torah, it got them looking shabby. But right now we in the trenches, we hunt in the wilderness, and y'all who is our witness. We survive and get out of this. I'm a survivor, baby. I'm a survivor, baby. Telling my somebody that I know I'm gonna make it. I'm a survivor, baby. I'm a survivor, baby. You can call me crazy, but I'm living and I'm shining.
under oppression or oppression on us. We're hit by multiple ways. These trials try to conquer and end us, but we will survive anyway. You have been given the power to survive these trials. Know that the Abba is with you. I am the key, my child.
I'm a survivor, baby. I'm a survivor, baby. Telling myself daily that I know I'm gonna make it out. I'm a survivor, baby. You can call me crazy, but I'm living and I'm sure survivor.
All right, all right, all right. That was U3 Survivor. Beautiful song. Beautiful song. Again, they are a brother and sister group. Amazing vocalists. I'm gonna see if I can find a song that could really showcase it. But without further ado, welcome back. YAH Conscience Radio. Well, if it's not YAH Conscience, then it is not acceptable. We are getting ready to go to our final topic of this evening. And it is marital and individual counseling. We was just talking about this, so it segued right into it. Marital and individual counseling or therapy in the Hebraic culture. How severe is it needed for Israel? So, what's your all's thoughts when it comes to marital together or individual counseling or therapy in the Hebraic culture? Is it present? And how severe is it needed for us as a people, as a culture? Going to pass the mic. Well, I'll start off. I haven't started off, I don't think. So I'll bring it out. So marital and individual counseling therapy. I think it's important. I can't speak for everyone in the community. Do I know offhand for sure if people are participating in these things? I don't know. It's hard to say. I want to say not on a large scale, but do I think that is needed for us in this community in the Hebraic culture? I believe so. I believe that was a purpose for elders, Zachanim. I think that was the purpose. You know, these elders had certain levels of wisdom before they became elders or before they became Moraim teachers. People wasn't just given the title of a Moreh and things of that nature. They were given that for a reason. Shoot, I don't want to put nobody out there, but I know someone that turned people away because of, you know, not having that spirit or that level of competency or love for the community or the culture or love for the people and wanting them to thrive individually and collectively. So I say that to say they used to be picked for a specific reason, and when they're picked that way and having those things I just mentioned, then they were equipped to be that counselor. You know what I'm saying? Not having like the credentials outside of us, but having the credentials within us. So that's what I believe elders or Zacharim was for. You know, and I think today in society, and yes, I'm saying people within the Israelites, the modern Israelites today in our society, I think they push away from the term having an elder, like it's something bad or wrong. But when you're in jobs and schools and other entities and things like that, you have someone that's over you. You have someone that's holding you accountable. You're making sure you're doing the things that's required that's given to you from the accountability that you have to abide by. But when it comes to us, it's different. It's different. So going back to how severe it is it needed for Israel is really severely needed. We're starting to fall away from those tenets. We're starting to fall away from that foundational structure I was talking about earlier. We're leaving that. We have it outside of our community to get that money and all that other stuff. But when it comes to us, the reason we're not thriving collectively is because we don't have individual counseling or eldership. And we darn sure ain't doing it together. I ain't talking to him. I ain't doing this. Well, how are you gonna thrive? How you gonna succeed? Even with Moshe, well, his father-in-law, I think, gave him the instructions more so than anything. But my point is, he couldn't do it himself. He took heed to it. But we have people in our community, men, perhaps even women, but I'm only going to speak on men because those are who I've actually witnessed that would not sit under an elder, that would not get counseling under an elder, that would not do marital counseling under an elder. Now that's facts. And I don't even say facts. How many times y'all heard me say facts since we've been doing this platform? That's a fact. And I see that that's really killing us. Not even only in the so-called, not only in our culture, but definitely in the so-called Black community, which is seeping in ours. So I'm gonna pass the mic. What you got for us? I don't even know who to pass. Whoever want to talk, go ahead and jump in. I don't even know who to pass it to now.
But Maury, I just want to piggyback. I think again, whether it's man or woman that don't want to seek counseling from an elder because they're being challenged. Like I said earlier, you're knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you doing with this knowledge? And then you have someone challenging you on that basis. You cannot, or nor should you place yourself in that position to be going round and round with the elder trying to justify yourself. Because the Torah is the Torah. The statute, laws, and commandments are written.
Mm-hmm.
There's really nothing to debate. But I think that pierces their soul. They have to start looking into who they really are. And again, this is from a male or female perspective. But an elder, a correct elder, he gonna peel back them onion layers, them layers to that onion, and get to the core of it.
Okay.
That's what's important. I think that's why we shy away from going to our elders, and we'll go to an outside, because an outside person don't have a clear understanding of what our statute, laws, and commandments are. So they're feeding us, or they're thinking that they're healing us or helping us on an Americanized way. You done walked out of there paying $100, $150, listen to this man or this woman talk to you about your issues, but it's still, let's go back again, it still does not align with your core, your foundation of what you and this woman believe in. So why would you seek outside counsel? That's it on that one.
Go ahead, jump in, y'all. Whoever want to jump in.
Now, I just want to comment on what you said earlier, Moray, about Moshe. When Moshe's father-in-law told him, look, you have to get your people and appoint elders and appoint leaders over the people to help you make judgments on situations, to help you counsel the people, to help you maintain and manage the people. So, it goes back to your elders, like you said. Whenever I look at counsel and therapy, and in the Hebrew culture, in our Black communities, I always appoint an elder because of their wisdom, because of their time allotted in this culture. and in their personal life, that they have a lot of wisdom that they can share and have a lot of experience that they can, once again, just.
We hear you though. I hope.
Okay.
Go ahead. We hear you. We hear you. I don't know if she
So
can hear.
it's more than obvious that, we do need counsel and therapy in the Hebrew community. If we're talking about, if we're talking on a larger scale and on a small scale. So my thing is, okay, where are these resources? How can we obtain these resources? First thing first, the number one biggest thing that keeps us back from counseling and therapy is a lack of financial stability. But let's go to what Kathy said. That's if you want to go to an outsider. Or even if you don't go to an outsider, you go to your local, someone known in the Hebrew community, you still want to reimburse because you still want to put that support back into your community. Okay. You still want to go in and have that intent that okay.
Still there? Okay.
Number 2, I didn't want to be biased. I thought I was being biased because I'm a woman, but a lot of that I do see with Moray, I do agree. Is majority of the leadership at the head of the households that are in denial.
Yeah.
They're in denial, and not only that, they just have no will. It's a lack thereof. It's a disconnect on why you do not want to seek out counsel for the betterment of your household and for the betterment of your functionality for your community.
Yeah.
Then let's go down. Let's trickle down to the youth. We could go on and on about this. And I seen that you posted a status about the man who just shot and killed his ex-wife, then his pregnant ex-girlfriend. And this actually happened in my hometown, Baltimore, Maryland.
I was gonna bring that out, but that's a whole show because I got so much on that I wanted to speak on. We're gonna have to cut, but we could talk on it if you want to bring it out. But definitely, that's one that if we do that, we need like a whole half of a show or something. I got some stuff to say on that.
Then we have to understand the healthy developmental that we want to bestow upon our children, which is another reason why it's important for us to get counsel for ourselves, because we want to be replenished. You want to function healthy so you can pour into your youth, pour into the Yadodim. That's very important.
That's right.
And we wondering why it's a boomerang effect of mental illness in our community. We wonder why it's a boomerang effect in mental illness in our marriage.
Yeah.
Well, not to say mental illness, but it's some type of mental disconnect going on.
Yeah, we haven't dealt with those issues even before coming into marriage too. A lot of times.
Okay, I agree.
We haven't sat down and had that therapy session or that counseling session with elders that can see what we're probably missing. So it's so much, man, and I just pray that our community can grow in that department and put the pride to the side. But yeah, go ahead, Chief. You got something?
Yeah, I mean, not really. There's only but so much I can go off of at this point because it's been pretty much hammered down by everybody. But the funny thing with therapy and Torah YAH that I was able to go through the channels and the courses in dealing with pastoral therapy. Well, now it's called pastoral counseling. But that's a field of my well, at least I like to believe a field of expertise. We were told, when I went through that program, New York Theological Seminary, about pastoral therapy, we were told that one of the reasons why, well, a distinction is made. Let me just put it this way. There's a distinction made between therapy and counseling. Counseling is good. Counseling is great. But counseling is what? Is exactly what the term means. It's counsel. It's advice. Mm-hmm. It's giving individuals some things to ruminate on, to consider and say, that's, yeah, maybe I'll employ that, I'll do this, whatever. Everybody loves counsel. I mean, think about it. We go online, we watch, we watch Kevin Samuels, we watch April Mason, we watch all of these different people giving advice on certain things, on relationships, whatever. Counseling is fine. No one has a problem with counsel. People have a problem with therapy because, see, therapy is different. Therapy and counseling is not the same thing. Counseling is the advice. Therapy is the fix. Huh. And the problem with therapy, and I'm not saying a problem, like I don't have a problem with therapy, but the problem that people see with therapy is that in order for therapy to work, there's going to have to be an excavation of your soul. All of the things that are transpiring in your mind, the things that are transpiring in your soul and your spirit, all of this stuff has to be excavated. It's like archaeology. All of this has to be dug up, all of it. And that's where it gets tricky, because you leave yourself out there being vulnerable. And we're going back to the privacy thing. We were just talking about this earlier. The dangers of privacy is that, when a person doesn't like, we don't like therapy because the idea of letting someone come in and excavate your entire existence, mm-hmm. and force you to now change, to force you to address these issues and make the necessary changes so that you become the better version of yourself. That is a problem, because many of us, we have found comfort in our dysfunction. We've been dysfunctional for so long that it becomes a part of us. It's like for people who've been in prison, it's called institutionalization. Where you've been in prison for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 40 years, you don't know anything other than prison. So even when you get out of prison, you can't help but to go back into the prison mentality, because it's become comfortable for you. You found comfort in the dysfunction, and that's why therapy is dangerous. People will accept counsel all day from you, but people will not receive therapy, because therapy requires an excavation. Counsel is just advice. Therapy is digging into your soul and finding the root causes behind why you are what you are today. And that's a very uncomfortable thing, especially, that's for anybody, you know what I'm saying? But especially people who know you and you know them. That's why I think, going back to the root of what Geberit, Sharon and Kathy spoke about, and you as well, Morey, that why people can go and to the outside sources to get therapy, to get counseling, whatever. But when it comes to those in the community, it's a problem. Why? Because, well, you can go and pay $200, $300, $400 to a white man, to give you therapy, but you don't have to worry about him. Why? Because after you leave his office, chances are you'll never see him again.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what you tell him or her, because it's like, yo, you're not even part of my community. I'm never gonna, the minute that I stop paying you, I'll never see you again.
Yeah.
But when you come under therapy sessions from fellow Israelites, Israelite elders. You've got to see these people all the time. And so all of your inner struggles, all of your vices, all of the things that you've spent so much time, so much energy and years suppressing, these things are now on display for everyone to see in the community. Because remember, we saw what we said earlier, everything was communal.
Mhm.
So when all of this stuff is put on display, and not in a negative way, but it's put on display, you are now vulnerable. So the very things that you were able to hide behind, to protect yourself, whatever, there's no more protection. You're stripped naked, and now you have to deal with the issues instead of hiding behind them. And I think you notice, Morris Shema, I always recommend this book. And again, not to go against what we were talking about, but this is one of the books that made me, when I first read it, it gave me a completely different outlook on the concept of therapy. I think I showed y'all this before.
Who am I this time? Yep.
Who am I this time? Uncovering the fictive personality. And this was the actual book that made me get into psychology, into therapy, because there were things that I was working out, trying to work out in myself. You know what I'm saying? Inconsistencies, things that I ran away from, even from very young or whatever, trying to, figure all of this stuff out. And it put me in a position where I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go study, I'm going to study this information. I'm going to go take these courses or whatever. But the best therapy that I had was when I was able to sit down with Elder Hebrews, Chief of Chiefs Naphtali, with elders who, who I looked up to and said, yo, I can, and this is when you start feeling free.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're not confiding in people who are just there to take your paycheck, to take the check that you give them, to take the money. Now you're confiding in individuals who genuinely want to see you improve, to become the better version of yourself. Our elders, that's what our elders want. They don't particularly care about all of the dark parts of your past and stuff like that. In that sense, they're like, okay, yeah, that is what it is. I want to see you become the best version of Gavera Kathy that you can become, the best version of Maurice Shema, the best version of Chief Zebulon, the best version of Gavera Sharon. All this is what our elders want. Why? Because better followers become better students. Better students become better followers. Better followers eventually become better leaders. And these are the individuals we're going to be taking over these elder spots. So they want you to become greater.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it all depends on, how we want to deal with those inner demons, to deal with the inconsistencies in our lives. Some of us were comfortable in being protected by the fiction.
Yeah.
And some of us are tired of the fictions, and we're like, nah, you know what? I need to go sit down with some elder and get my damn head together, because I'm jacked up. I'm twisted.
That's true.
So again, just to kind of wrap up that point, that, I think that's the problem with the whole counseling therapy. Everyone loves counsel. Everybody loves advice. YouTube is prime example of everybody loves advice. Who doesn't go to YouTube and go watch somebody give you advice about relationships, give you advice about this? Everyone loves advice.
Mm-hmm.
And I use the example of Kevin Samuels. I watch a lot of his content. One of the things that I do like what he does, people will call in to get all of this advice, whatever like that. But watch how they respond when he says, you need therapy. That's when the conversation goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll accept the advice. But when you tell somebody they need therapy, what are you really saying? You're saying that something in you is broken.
Yeah.
And you need it to be fixed. And that's the problem. It's
that fear of accountability too. It's the fear of accountability, and it's also, I'm grown. Even if you know you need help, I'm grown. No, no, that like nobody gonna be looking over me, this and that. So, and I spoke with someone too, and the concept of having like an elder is foreign to a lot of people. But it's not foreign. At the same time, it's not foreign though, because you do have elders.
Right.
You have even removing eldership out of it, just the places that you work, they hold you accountable. Same concept.
Bingo.
It's no different or difference. So it's a fear of that too. I wanted to throw that in there. Like you said, they'll take that information because the information, look, I hear you right now, but once I walk away, oh well, back to my life.
Right.
So I just wanted to throw that. You hit it on the mark. You hit it on the mark for real. Anybody else got anything to add towards that?
I actually just have a question
Mm-hmm.
that I want to throw out to the panel. I already have my thoughts and my own belief because I made a statement when it was my turn to speak. But I recall my grandmother, who was a Christian, and we were outside our house, and across the street there was a elderly man that lived in a box. My grandmother made sure she fed him breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I never heard my mother say anything harsh about this man. But then when my grandmother and I'm sorry to keep saying grandmother, mother, but she raised me, so mom, grandmother, but we were looking at someone that she knew that was walking down the street that you could clearly see that had lost their mind. And my grandmother made a statement to me. She said, when you see people like that, they don't know the Most High. That resonated with me. That hurt me. And as I've gotten older, I recognize that people do have issues. But what I wanted to present to the panel, do you think we create our own issues by not indulging with the Most High? Was there any truth to my grandmother saying that if somebody can lose their mind, they had no true foundation, that they didn't know the Most High? Like that, for a long time, like I said, I really thought like, wow, okay, I got to be strong in mind. But then we talking about mental health. So somebody's telling me, teaching me, or showing me I got to be strong in mind in comparison to somebody that's weak in mind. I just want to know, does anyone agree with that? That if you really don't know the Most High, that you break, that's when people really and truly lose their mind? Or does it go back to what I was saying earlier when we were talking about our original question about just respecting individualities and the characteristics of us, of our individuality, that certain characteristics may not be brought out until certain situations come about. So I mean, I just, I said what I said in the last question, but when everyone was talking, I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because I never will forget she said that to me, and that hurt me to my heart because I was like, oh no, that empathy that we all have. But I wonder, I guess I'm asking, is there the slightest tad bit of trueness to this?
So
that if you don't know the Most High, that you are more subject to, like, just because this person was way out there, like they weren't living in no home, they were on the street talking to themselves, all of that. I'm just trying to give more details, not just yeah.
Me personally, I can't. I'm not saying it's a fact. I wouldn't say that's the case. I wouldn't say it is or it isn't the case. That could be something with that individual. from my point of view, because it's people who don't know the Most High and they thriving. They're healthy, they're fine, who don't operate within our culture, don't even operate within Christianity, identify with being atheists. So if that was this is just me speaking again, and I'm not saying she's wrong or right, or I'm wrong or right. I'm just saying from my point of view, viewing the whole scope of like everything, we would have to ask the question and put it to an atheist. Like, by them not knowing the Most High or believing, but they're thriving in life and their mental is strong and they're healthy, got healthy relationships. They're, I think it's something in the New Testament that says, and I feel like I could find it in the Tanakh too, because I know everything. I can find everything in Tanakh or other literature, but I want to use this saying that stuck with me for a long time because it's truth in this saying that it rains on the just and the unjust. That it rains on the just and the unjust, and this is what that saying means to me. No matter if you're just or unjust, both of y'all gonna get that rain, right? So the opportunities in life is there for both people. It's up to the people to decide how much they want it. So if you are righteous or if you're unrighteous, if the righteous person, and this is me speaking, I'm not saying nothing about this Most High or literature, this and that, it's just my thought process on it. If the righteous person or the unrighteous person put in the same work that the righteous person puts in regards to just something as simple as a job, I view it as they both can accomplish it. Now, the person that's righteous that has the Most High, I believe that the Most High is going to have parameters to allow that person to thrive in other ways, whether it's mentally, whether it's having more peace, whether it's having more balance. But I believe if the other person that's not on this same path is just putting in that work and is a hard worker, they're going to accomplish it too. Or they're going to accomplish some level of what that goal is that both of them are reaching towards. But I think that when you have the Most High, I think that it's a certain peace that you have. It's a certain balance that you have in your life. It's a certain, spirituality, for lack of a better word, that you have. So I look at those things as just separate. That's why I brought up the example of the atheist, because I look at that as kind of just separate. You see atheists all the time. They got a good life, according to what we can see. So hopefully something I said made some sense, but I'm going to pass the mic.
Yeah, I mean, I think the essence of what I think there's validity to the essence of what was communicated to Gabera Kathy. Because I mean, listen, one of the things that I learned is that if you ever notice, people used to always make jokes about this, but you ever heard somebody says, "Oh yeah, people they go to prison and they find God." Mm-hmm. And that was always a joke. That that was like the long ha 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 whatever. But think about that though. Why do people find God when they go to prison? Why do people find God on their deathbed? And there's a reason. And it seems the reason is that and ultimately this kind of goes back to with people who kind of leave this world mentally, where they just kind of they kind of go out of their mind. Whatever. We live in a world in which, I mean, let's be honest, you have to be very strong, and you have to be very strong to live in this world and not go out of your flipping mind. Mm-hmm. When you see the things that are transpiring in this world, when you see famine, when you see young people, whether it's boys or girls, being molested, being raped, when you see women being violated, when you see men getting stabbed up, and when you see all of these things, whatever, it's very easy for a person to say, yo, this life has no purpose whatsoever. It's nothing but madness. And it is oftentimes it is the concept of God that draws them out, as you know, that gives them some type of purpose and an explanation as to why they are seeing the things that they're seeing or experiencing the things that they're experiencing in this world. I mean, think about it. Even atheists, it's funny when, you know, I think me and Maury Shamal had this conversation before, that I always I don't believe that there's any such thing as an atheist. There's what I call fallibilistic atheists. But pure atheism requires that you prove that God doesn't exist, and atheists haven't actually been able to prove that. But they're fallibilistic in the sense that they have not seen enough evidence to believe in God. But even in their belief, in their lack of belief of God, God is still the center of their dealings, because all of their arguments is about God and whether or not he exists. But even with atheists and people who are agnostic, or they don't really have a direct connection to a God concept, even they come to the same conclusions. They might use different terms. They might use terms like nature. They might use terms like, you know, universal intelligence matrix. You know, they use terms like natural laws and stuff like that. But these are all the same, the concept of a power that transcends this world and that gives people purpose. Because without the concept of God, well, whatever the God that a person believes, whether they believe it's Christ and the other, whatever, the concept is what actually draws people out of despair and into some level of cognizance where they're like, okay, you know what? I have purpose. I mean, think about it. I think I don't know if y'all have heard of this. It's called Pascal's wager.
No, I haven't.
You know, we learned this in like NYTS. It's a philosophical argument that was quote unquote created by a French theologian who basically said that in this world, and he called it a wager, he said that it makes more sense to believe in God than not to believe in God. And then he gave, and this is the reason why he said that. He said, if you believe in God and then you die and then you stand before God, then you should be good. But if you die and God doesn't exist, it still doesn't matter to you. You lived a good life, and if God doesn't exist, you don't lose anything.
Yeah.
If God exists, you gain everything. If he doesn't exist, you don't lose anything. So that's the wager.
That's before, just not the term. I said I've heard it before, just not the term. You always bring the terms to me, Chief. Yeah.
But on the flip side, a person who doesn't believe in God and lives his life as though God doesn't exist, if it turns out that, you know, he lived his life, you know, doing evil, whatever the case, and then it turns out that God doesn't exist, it's like, oh well. But if God does exist,
yeah,
then it's not a good look. So the atheist, you know what I'm saying, you know, if he, you know, who doesn't believe in God, if God doesn't exist, he hasn't gained anything or lost anything. But if God does exist, he loses everything.
Yeah. So
Pascal, so this theologian philosopher, he basically is saying that in this life, if we looked at this life as a wager, it makes more sense to believe in God's existence than his non-existence, because with God's existence, you stand to gain everything and you lose nothing if he doesn't exist. Whereas if you don't believe you gain nothing if he doesn't exist. But if he does, but if he does exist, you lose everything. So if we were to put these concepts on a balance and say the wager, like, who would you put your money on? You like, you know what? I put my money on God because I gain everything but lose nothing. Whereas these guys, they lose everything and gain nothing. Yeah. So when Gavera Kathy was saying this, giving that anecdote that came from her grandmother, I don't know if what she said can pan out in all of its details, because there's a lot, like you said, Maury. There's a lot of other situations where it's like, that might not work in this situation. But the essence, I think there's some I think there's validity in the essence of it, because again, people find God in worse situations in their lives, whether they go into prison, whether they're on their deathbed, whether they're staring down the barrel of a gun, whatever like that. And the question is why do people seek God in these extreme situations? And because there's a saying that there's an idea that the reason why people do that is because it is their DNA, it is their soul that is now crying out or now trying to seek that which that the person's soul knows exists. Yeah. That when you put them in a corner and that person's about to meet where that moment where life and death meet, they now are reaching out to something beyond themselves because they realize I'm not God. If I was God, none of this would even be happening. Yeah. So I understand, I think the elders, our grandparents and great grandparents, I think they told us certain things that were holdovers from older wisdom, prior to them coming into the captivity, coming into the exile, whatever, like, hints of things that they might have picked up, from their ancestors, whatever. I see the validity in certain elements of it, but I think if we're trying to apply that, I don't know if it applies in all situations. And that example that Maurice Shema gave, I think is a valid point, because if God is the absolute reason why people prosper, then it's like, well, that's the case. Well, then you gotta kind of explain this guy over here who is railing against God all day, saying, "Oh, God doesn't exist," and meanwhile it seems like he's living very well. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a grain of salt kind of situation where we take the essence, we extract the essence of it and say, okay, well, this can apply here, whatever like that, but got to be kind of careful with it.
I gave her aspect, and what I should have added on was that, I was raised by my grandparents, so they were slaves. So her mentality was, if you allow this world to break you, you're never going to get here. Mm-hmm. As I got older, I understood it. It didn't resonate as hard and made me feel hurtful. So what I took from her was that if you didn't trust in the Most High, regardless of what level of understanding that you had and what God you were worshiping, if you didn't put that in the forefront, yes, you would lose your mind. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, they didn't have all of the fancy things that we're sitting here talking about now. Therapy. Their therapy was praying to the Most High and talking to whoever was laying next to them or what have you. So my reason of presenting that, and like I said, I should have presented that other little clause in there because that would have made the difference. I understood as I got older her saying for this. And that's what made me kind of want to, even, in addition to my husband, just draw closer to the Most High. Because I'm like, I feel like it's there, it's written. It tells you you're going to go through these transgressions. You're going to experience these things. It tells you why you're experiencing these things. Whether you want to look at it on an individual basis or cultural, it tells you why. Again, I didn't know that when I was in a Christian perspective. And again, people played on your emotion. When your emotion got dry, and you had nothing else to fulfill that emotional well, sorry, it's easy for you to go to the left, lose your mind, think about all the the things that get you out of this situation versus reading the Torah or the Tanakh and revisiting your history, which is still existing today.
Okay.
It's still in existence today. But like I told my grandmother, out of due respect, as I got older, because I understood her perception and she was correct to a certain degree. She was correct because that person had a level of understanding. They didn't have the full experience of being taught the real Torah. They were being told what was expected of them to learn and to practice on their day-to-day lives. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily what was meant for them as an individual or a culture of people.
Yeah.
So I understood that. So I don't know. I as I gotten older, I really do believe that mental illness is an issue. I really and truly do. But I also believe that the more and more you communicate with the Most High, the better and better your understanding will become. But again, you got to look at our forefathers and our forefathers in regards to what they were being taught and how they were being taught to pray and their level of understanding, which could bring on these levels of mental illnesses to the degree that we may see today. Because if they weren't helped, keep in mind, they got children that are being born, children that are being born to those children. Where are we at now? It's more easier to say, I have a mental problem, than to say, I don't know the Most High or and I'm not trying to make an excuse. I honestly, I'm not. But just look at the breakdown of communication in our culture to our people. Like, I think that's where we got lost. And again, like I said on another segment, we have grandparents raising children, our children of this generation. Those people, they're doing the best that they can do, but they can't even begin to identify what these kids are going through. I mean, that's what I have to say on that. I'm gonna mute out.
Good points. Definitely good perspective. Definitely, like you said, some validity to it as well. I love these conversations too. These added or additional conversations, because it ties back into it. It ties back into a lot of stuff, and it ties back into safeguarding your household and community. So it's definitely a good point to bring out. If you're just tuning in, or if you're in and you haven't done it yet, make sure you subscribe, like, share. Also, make sure if you have any questions, you're not able to ask it now, you can email us at yahconscienceradio@gmail.com. So that way we can bring forth conversations that fit what you're looking for as well. Anyone have anything else they want to bring out before we close this segment? All right. I think it was a beautiful conversation. Great topics, needed. I hope that it touches someone in whatever way is needed, that it can add to your journey, to your life, to help assist in you safeguarding your household and not getting away from the community, as Porque Abot ethics of the fathers really pushed. And it's evident within our Torah too. So without further ado, I'm going to close out. We're going to end with a little more upbeat song. I was gonna play another song by U3, but I want to play a song by Moretan that I wanted to play the other week that I wasn't able to. And it's him doing a Hebrew song called Ani Olech.
Hebrews humble, Hebrews humble, Hebrews humble, Hebrews humble. Okay, I need whole lake. I need more than I need Ibri, Koagle, I need Shim, Shellel, Yon, Shell, Elohim, who don't think Sakwe, I may sleep for let a yon, Beko de Barim, and I do Hayeledim, where I do have never in, shall I get to be, where I need a bill from Male, Amiki Haim, Kashubi, Miss Party, Manisma, I need so Mayo, and Haim Shaliak Shao, this little Tadakabo, allow me say Otto Habore, Miss Patao, Hey Muslim, Lekane Lenu, this more Otam, Ule Asotam, Ligmoa Zaman, Hasefe Omele, Olam. אני זרוק את המילים שלו, כי אני זריק מים מאיפה את הארץ, האנשים שלי לבנות, בתים השדות, ערבים, הם העמקים והגבעות, אנחנו לא רוצים לחובה בלד, כן, כן, נבוא, אם אתם רוצים את זה, יש לכם יכולים את זה, אנחנו מוכנים בסביל כל דבר ובכל מקרה, כל כך אני מקווה שלום ראשון דאז אני בא, כמו גבר שרודף, הקורא את האישה, אתה יודע אל עליון עמנו תמיד, הוא מורי ואני תמידו, הוא נתן לנו המורית, ויאמר נהיה סגולתו, אתה לא יש להאמין, באלוהי כי אני לא דאגה, רק תן לי אהבה, מתי אתה רואה אותי בה, אני עם גבורים גדולים, ואנחנו טובים, מה לישון, תגולנו כל יום, ואנחנו ללמוד, עבודנו ובזכותך, יום על יום דבורeka, הם שומעים את הדרך שלי, אז אני הולך במותקה, אלה כמיה סוויתי בכל מקום, אני הולך, לפעמים אני זוקק לעצמי כי אני יושב וחושב, אנשים מציבים באותי כמו אני לא טוב, כמו אני ילד רע, אבל אני רק איש הקורא רצונו, אני האיש שקורא לי אדון, היא אשתי והיא מסויון, היא הקוראי ומה יש לנו את זה לא מושלם, הכנס העד הגלגלים יפלו לאדמה, זה את הדרך יהיה ובשביל את זה תתן לו תהילה, הבורא יהווה אל עליון ברא השמיים והארץ, אני רעב לעם, את זה היה אותו פתק את הדלת. כן, יא קאי, יהודי, כן. Humble Hebrews, humble Hebrews, humble Hebrews, humble.